Okay, we're back to painting. And we're going to look at this nice dry batch of color here and actually start drawing in a few things, even though I haven't done this background, because I want to think about, for instance, if I were to paint a lot of purple back here, I may not be able to get that red. So we want to start thinking about that layering. Now before I draw in here, I want to show you that this is an HB pencil. HB. H or HB is a hard pencil. No smearing. You don't want a 4B or a 6B. HB. Okay? So I'm going to take this pencil and very lightly figure out, okay, the tree is going to be going across about like this. And I just really want to barely block it in. I'm not going to do any details yet. Just going to show where it's going to go across the color. And then this breaks apart there. And then the figure is centered right under that sun. And I just want him to be this big dark shape. And here's his hand, and he could actually be painted over any color because he's pretty darn dark. He's a very deep blue-black. But I'm going to just sketch him in anyways, just to kind of plan out my painting. I think I'll also take these lines in the background. See how that bright green divides up all the purple? I want to be sure and use those to frame my figure. Remember, anytime you put something around something else, you're framing, and that is a great way to keep your composition strong. So you can see this is very light and loose, and now I'm going to go in and paint some background color. I'm still only using the three primary colors. Yellow, red, and blue is here somewhere. There it is. Yellow, red, and blue. And right now I'm going to be putting a little bit of green in where I was talking about before I do the purple, because I want to make sure it stays bright, and I want to make sure I don't go over it with the purple. So I'm going to get some definite yellow brushed in here, very rich yellow. And you're going to find out that mixing the yellow and blue is not going to give you the same kind of green that a tube will give you, but we're going to try it out anyways. So I see these areas coming across here. Then I'm going to take a little bit of blue and go over my yellow and let them bleed together. See what I get here. Not quite as bright as Van Gogh's green. So if it's a little too dark, what do you think I could do about that? What did we do when the pink was too bright in the sky? I wonder if anybody remembers. That's a little bit too bright of a green right there. Just brushing the blue into the yellow, letting it bleed across. Well, in case you haven't guessed yet, I am going to take this and pull up some of that green because it's too bright. I'm sorry, it's too dark. It's hard to talk and paint at the same time. I'm getting a little more yellow. Brighten up that green. Now once we do this painting with only the primary colors, you'll find out there are pigments. For instance, there's an incredible purple pigment that is very difficult to match with red and blue. But for right now, we're learning how to mix just with these primary colors. Okay, so I've got this in here, and I could start now getting the purple in there, but I've got to be careful not to get into the green I just painted, because hopefully by now you've figured out what happens when you mix all the colors together. Actually, I'll do a little sample and show you. If I have purple right here, and I mix some green in, which ends up covering all the primary colors, guess I have to have a deeper green for this to work. It makes a very muddy brown. Sometimes it makes a gray, depending on what pigments you're using. But mixing all the colors together, sometimes you'll want to do that. You'll want to mix your own brown or your own gray. But if you don't want brown or gray, you want to really think about not letting colors run into each other. Okay, that could be a stormy cloud up in the sky. Maybe I could take a little tissue and pull some of that up. Have some. Oh well, looks more like a blob, but you can see what happens with all the colors mixed together at once. So we have this green down to get those bright areas. I'm going to brush in a little bit of green right here, and right in this corner right here. I'm going to do it with a big brush. There's a little bit of yellow right here, and a little bit yellow right here. And is that all? Guess so. Alright, then I'm going to rinse out my brush, and if you notice, I changed my paint water so it's not dirty. This is very important. Every now and then you have to get up out of your seat and go change your paint water. I know it's hard, but it's one of those things you can do to keep from making a muddy painting. And we're in a room with 6 sinks these days, so anyways, I rinsed out my brush. Then I'm going to dry it so it's not too wet. And this purple area back here, I think my brush might be a little too big. So I'll set this one aside. Don't need that toothbrush yet. You might think I was going to brush my teeth while I was painting, but this is actually to show you how to do some spattering. Don't let me forget to show you that. Okay. So here we go. Purple. We've got some blue. Okay. Now we are going to get some red. And I'm going to use a clean brush to pull this red over here so I don't pollute my red. There we go. I'm going to mix it together, and before I paint it onto my watercolor paper, I'm going to test it. So I've got my experiment going over here. I'm going to test my purple and see, is that the purple I want? Oh no, it's not. My purple is too red, I think. And this purple in here needs a little more blue. I'll add a little more blue. Always test your colors first. You can save a lot of paint by... Now this is more of a purple blue, which is what I want. Okay? So, I'm going to mix that together and get it onto my page. I'm going to paint right through my figure since he's dark. Now, if he were not dark, I would have to go around him, which is a pain. You don't want to do that unless you have to. I'm just going to paint right through him. And the purple comes down right about here. And there's some places now here in the foreground that have some purple. And it goes right up to this edge. Now it's very important to not leave a place where you're going to have to come back and paint later, because if the paper dries in between, it's going to give you a hard time. I'm going to go right along here and get this purple area done. You can see I'm working right under my light because I've lost the sunshine. The clouds have moved in, and guess what happened right here? Look at how I mixed up my green and my purple, so I've got some gray in there. That's really disappointing. So I'm going to take my brush, rinse it out, dry it, try to pull some of that up. Okay, that's called a thirsty brush, pulling that color up. So when that's all dry, later on, I'm going to come back and clean that up some. Now right across the back area here, I have some more purple coming across. And right across here. Okay. I'm being careful not to get my green and my purple mixed together. Okay. Now obviously mine looks very flat. It's because there's a lot of texture in this painting, and I will go in later and add the texture on top. So basically what I'm doing is, let's see if I can find this. I am working light to dark. Light to dark. Try to embed that in your memory. And I am going to work big shapes to details last, because adding these things right now would just cause me trouble, because then I'd have to paint around them. So big shapes of color, then the details. So I'm going to go ahead and add this broad purple area right here that's a little bit redder. And I better test my color. It's more of a cross between those two. A little bit. That's a little bit. This is actually just a little bit too dark. So if I spread it out, add a little more water, then I get more of a lavender. Remember, we don't add white paint. We just add water and let the color mix with the white paper. So I think that's going to be more of that lavender color right there. Straight through here. There's more of my dog's hair right there. She's the only one with black hair in our house, so I know it's a dog. Okay, so I've got to lighten this up so it's not too dark of a purple. Okay, and I see this reddish orange I've got to get in there for a nice contrast. And then a bit of purple right here. Really kind of gives you some insight into his composition, what he was thinking as far as bringing your eye right here. He's got all these shapes pointing right towards this figure, even though the figure is kind of dark. So, I need to get this bit of red. Notice that red is not all by itself. It gets repeated right here, and here. So you've always got some repeated color pulling your composition together. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry for a little bit before I work on it some more.